Hello, my name is Mike Jensen Raj. This is for analytical chemistry. The subject matter is about ozone, elemental analysis. Let's begin. Ozone is an allotrope of oxygen. Ozone is highly oxidative and unstable, though not radioactive. O3 formation is natural and it can also be man-made. First positively identified by Christian Friedrich Schubin in 1840. Concentration is usually measured in parts per billion, ppb, or microgram per meter cube. The chemical and physical properties. The name is trioxygen. The symbol is O3. It is 48 grams per mole because there are three oxygen molecules. The color is blue. Density, it is quite dense comparatively, and the phase is a gas. It has a low solubility in water. Uh, Molar entropy is a little bit larger, and the enthalpy of formation, it takes more energy because O3 in itself is unstable. Um, the angle and the shape is bent just similar to oxygen, except the angle is 116 instead of 114, and the electrical oxidative potential is 2.07 volt, and it is usually has absorption wavelength of 254 nanometer, in that range. And boric acid iodinization is usually the chemical for detection of ozone. Good versus bad ozone. Troposphere ozone, formed by combustion of fossil fuels, also creates other gases like nitric oxide, etc., causes haze and like harm. This is especially true for those experiencing lung problems. Lung, if exposed for a prolonged time, will show symptoms of superoxidative stress. Superoxidative stress will cause the lung to discharge additional fluids to stabilize the damage, and thus cause the patients to feel overwhelmed and unable to breathe if left untreated. It will cause the patients to die or drown in their mucus fluid, as was the case in COVID-19 when they used uh, ventilator machines. And ventilator machine caused excess accumulation of oxygen in their lungs, um, and carbon dioxide. Excess oxygen causes oxidative, probably because of ozone formation. Yeah, very unlikely, but it could very well be just simple oxygen in high concentration, and mm, oxidative pressures can result in excess fluid formation. That is in the tropospheric ozone. Usually, uh, the ozone which hurts lung tissue is tropospheric ozone, um, caused by fossil fuel formation. Now, stratospheric ozone. The most useful ozone absorbs a certain portion of UV light. If there is excess UV hitting the ground, UVB, then it means the ozone is in low concentration. Low UV means O3 absorption is high. High UV, low O3, low UV, high O3. So that's how they use for detection. Otherwise, they have to go grab the ozone molecules apart and then bring it down, then analyze it. So this is much easier, though there are drawbacks, and it can be not be very certain. Production identification. Identification is basically done by Dobson meter, most used. Chemical and other identification method are available as well. Production coronal discharge method. This method is high intensity of energy compared to UV method. Gas is fed to a tube with two rods. In the space between the rods, a high volt current is passed. The coronal discharge causes the molecules O2 in the space between to get excited quickly to become ozone. The second method is ultraviolet light. Need to have a steady air and quiet time. Most cost-effective method, but need considerable patience and the least efficient method of formation. UV light is exposed to oxygen molecules or air, and after a certain period of time, O3 molecules are formed through graduation excitement of O2 molecules. Cold plasma, pure O2 is exposed to high discharge, electric discharge, or some sort of radiation to get the O2 molecules excited. Uh, the excited molecules then transform to O3 molecules. The most efficient method um, is the cold plasma, which has a formation 5% formation, and also the most expensive because you have to have pure oxygen. Uses medical oxygen therapy, the most important one of the main useful things. It usually used done in ozonated oil and fluid to clean wounds and to accelerate healing. Consumer for consumer uses, it's a deodorize, water purification, and air sanitize. Industrial chemical synthesis, purification, biological and pesticide contaminants removal. May it be found used for replacement super solvents due to high polarity. So there are many uses. In fact, ozone is ionized molecule. There is another ionized variant of molecule called hydroxyl OH minus. So that is even much more efficient than ozone because ozone needs more time to be created. Hydroxy is much more easier because you remove one H from the water vapor and also create hydroxy, which is as aggressive as ozone. So that's another ionized molecule, oxidative species. Medical O3 therapy. It's auxiliary complementary therapy. Improves the outcome if coupled with radiotherapy and chemotherapy. High oxidative power. Need to be cautious while in use. Intravenous delivery, the best method of delivery. Site selection based on tumor, cancerous growth. Example, rectal infusion if rectal cancer is known instead of intravenous delivery. Because each one has its own unique way of dealing with those kinds of particular cancers. Secondary messengers responsible if not in contact, peroxide and 4-hydroxy nonio. Usually, these two secondary messengers respond in like fashion by increasing the blood flow, like nitric oxide, diluting the vessels and causing the blood to go faster and thus improve the overall recovery. Ozonated oil, the best delivery method, then ozonated aqueous fluid. Of 28 patients involved, the study which I read, 28 patients involved, 22 showed marked improvement due to excess blood flow due to the two intermediate species, hydrogen peroxide and 4-hydroxy-nonio. What are the improvements I would like to be seen while another oxygen ozone therapy is in being tested? The first one is nutrition, high nutrition dosage, because the nutrition as nutrition is increased, patient recovery can be increased. O2 intake: the more oxygenated a body is, the more energized the body becomes. Exercise for improved metabolism and oxygen uptake. Hope and faith in God, the best medicine, along with nutritious food. So if you add all this, I think there can be reason that much more improved outcome can be derived because ozone, not in contact, produces secondary messengers which help increase circulation. Education aspect, methodological and philosophical. So chemistry is divided can be easily divided into three segments: math, which are mathematical work to back up theories and procedures which are used to derive answers, and theory, concepts visualized which aid in comprehension. So the chemistry or any other subject can be divided into three segments, almost most. can be divided into three segments, and this helps the students to narrow down their difficulties and to overcome their difficulties. Things to help students achieve success: curiosity help. Having an open mind about things concerning the science can help. Hard work, never stop, also improve and adapt as needed. Passion, what is being learned, there needs to be a motivation. And confidence, you have to have a confidence in yourself. As you're learning, you're improving, and you know what you're learning and doing is right. And stand for what is true, don't back down, confront and win, because science is science. Science is not religion, it is a process of discovery, of inquiry. Educational aspect: policy driven by truth. Policy must be based on truth and not assumptions. These are a few steps that will ensure the trust of the public. To ensure the trust of the public is gained back, gaining back the public trust. So, a student engaging in science must know that policy must be driven by truth. It's one of the education aspects, because they need to know, because that truth is the greatest source of inspiration for scientists, because we, whether it be scientists, or as a physicist, or as a chemist, as a biologist, we are driven to seek truth, because truth stands, everything else falls away. So one of the thing in especially in astronomical, or I should say atmospheric chemistry, one of the things lacking is trust. So for the public to gain trust, these are the things that can be done. Well, first one, chain of trust. We need to know who collects data. Data is sacred in science, so those involved must be educated, must have required experience, must be notarized. Universal detection method that is proven, must test and find it reliable before inquiry. The Dobson meter is flawed. It's not as reliable as it should be, because a cloud particles can block UV, and that might misread as high ozone. Even the glass absorbs UV, and humidity absorbs or blocks UV. So it's you have to be careful when dealing with those kinds of data collection. uh, Collected data must be available to the whole community. It must be there. There shouldn't be any partitioning of data. Data must be available to everyone. The whole data, not half of it, or one third of it, the whole of it. The decision-making process or interpreting data must be transparent, and the methods, technique used must be revealed to the public. You need to tell them how the conclusion came to be, the reasons and the logic behind the selections and the methods and the statistical tools being employed. You need to tell them. Science must be driven by inquiry and not by belief. Let science be. Policies formed by policymakers, lawmakers, and not scientists. So, science must be science, not driven by religious belief like Earth, nature, Mother Earth, such stuff. Education aspect, scientific skepticism. One of the things that every student must have is they must have a scientific skepticism. They need to doubt, and they need to have a certain amount of doubt as well as certain amount of trust in science for it to progress. Why? Because that is how science progress. Science is not a religion but based on factual and investigative inquiry. The earth is round. Let me give you an example. This is based on Occam's razor. The earth is round. The poles are situated at the top and the bottom. The sun doesn't reach the poles. The sun causes O3 formation. O3 formation low on poles due to the limited strength of the sun's penetrating rays. This follows Occam's razor. So, does chlorine cause depletion of O3 in stratosphere? No, not if you follow Occam's razor. Does this call for scientific inquisition? Maybe not. Science is the process of understanding mysteries, and so investigating and concluding with evidences and use of logic. That is science. So I, uh, so I disagree, uh, humbly disagree with their factual findings on chlorine depleting ozone. Pollution versus temperature. Pollution does not equate to temperature rise. Pollution is not equal to temperature. Pollution means contamination, while temperature means rise in heat content. There's a stark contradiction between pollution and temperature. Uh, um, there's one joke. You could take it as a joke. If pollution equals temperature, the one of the first place to heat up would be my room. I need to clean up that place, but uh, in a sense, it's kind of true because pollution does not equal to temperature rise. What causes temperature rise? The sun, the cyclical incidences of the earth. That's all. The sun and the cyclical incidences of the earth. What do you mean cyclical incidences? The earth is round, it is revolving. The sun is revolving. The earth is revolving around the sun, and the moon is revolving around the earth. Because of these incidences, temperature differences is created. You have to be humble about it. Humanity cannot increase temperature. It can pollute and destroy nature itself through pollution, through causing harm, radioactivity, pollution and stuff, but it cannot cause temperature rise. There's a huge stark difference. Pollution does not mean temperature. Now and forevermore, if the sun reduces its heat content, let's say by 1 unit, 1%, let's say 1%, the temperature in Earth's surface throughout the north, the south, and the tropics will drop by 1%. If the sun's rays, penetrating strength of rays, increases by 1%, the Earth atmosphere will respond likewise when we'll have temperature increase of 1%. Um, there is a feedback mechanism that we are not well aware of. There's two theories. There is one is iris theory, the other one is Gaia theory. Regardless which one you follow, it's the same thing. There's a feedback mechanism in place because without a feedback, then the temperature and the earth that we know would have not existed. The second one is probability is not reality. Probability is not definitely not reality. So stopping modeling. So stop modeling on probabilistic fashion and don't alarm the whole world. And that too based on assumptions and still unproven. Reality needs action numbers from reliable sources and with good provable logic. So reality and not probability. Religion of science. Modern science is led by those involved who have vested interest in changing the world. They have shown it. So why? Science is led by modern day high priests of Baal. They have no love for truth. Moved by a natural spirit of evil, they deny the divine Lord Jesus Christ and thus fall in the trap set by the devil. No logic, reasoning based on evidences, none of that, nor any notion of humanity will deter them from pursuing a policy set on lowering world population, curbing CO2 emissions, and war against chemicals that cause O3 depletion, and many of other nonsensical quests. They have no brains. They have no brains. They got no gains. No brains, no gains. Clearly, they are set on curbing CO2 emissions. CO2 is one of the benign molecules known to mankind. Without CO2, there is no life. The only way to reduce drastic reduction in CO2 is a drastic reduction of human, animal, and plant populations. And not to mention marine too, but marine is too complicated. Um, so these three things need to be down. Then only the CO2 emissions can be reduced. The best way to combat CO2 emissions is to use greener technology, plant more trees, and make sure existing trees are not destroyed. There are safe, affordable ways of doing such thing, but uh, any other, if you really want CO2 reduction, you have to have population control, animal control, and plant control. Without these, there's no CO2 reduction happening anytime soon. Question. These are the few questions. Due to time constraint, I will just read two. What is ozone formation? Why is ozone formation such a small fraction of the total, around 20%, 22% of total O2 available in the atmosphere? Why is oxygen ozone small compared to the oxygen? It shouldn't be higher, right? Ozone is highly radioactive. At what wavelength and at what altitude does the ozone form? And what wavelength and at what altitude does the ozone dissociate? Meaning dissociate means break apart. So for the for question 23, I have a theory called pooling theory. Pooling theory, which states that ozone, because it's formed at the top layer and it has a mosaic model. It does not have a cake model. It has a mosaic model. As the gradient concentration increases as you go up. So because of this thick concentration at the top, as ozone is formed, so is its formed, reformed, and made into oxygen. So the ozone formation, that thick concentration is what only remains because of the pooling effect, which means as it is being formed, it is being destroyed on the ratio. So 2 to 3. So I would say about two-thirds of ozone formed are actually dissociated at that particular concentration. Maybe some of them will leak down in a mosaic pattern, but most of them are just destroyed and formed into oxygen. Otherwise, if the cascading or the propensity or the spontaneity of such a thing is high, then the oxygen wouldn't be 22% of total for total availability in the atmosphere. The second question is second. I'll pick two questions here. 48 and 49. Can hypochlorous, I believe it's hypochlorous species form dimer? Can they form hypochlorous acid species as well? Because that's a weak acid, and weak acids don't dissociate that well, and it can be washed down. And for now, why is Robertson Berger meter not used as a replacement for Dobson instrument? So what's the reason behind for choosing Dobson instrument over Robertson Berger meter? So, in conclusion, science must be science and not driven by religious beliefs. Data must not be corrupted or manipulated. Biases must be avoided. Remove preconceived notions of the outcome. Instruments and data modeling must meet scientific expectations and standards. Peer review must be decentralized and not given to gatekeepers. If you have a finding, you don't have to go to peer review. You can, because of modernity week, you can have website, non-peer reviewed, just posting your own research. Whether every someone wants to look at it, it's up to them. I think that kind of opening the science so that the gate we can avoid the intermediaries, the gatekeepers. That would be nice if a website comes along that allows anyone who have done a research, a good, proper, thorough research. They have to the all they have to do is pay a fee, uh, prove that they have educated in some capacity, um, and they have no criminal record or they have no ill intent. So with that kind of moral, everybody will be able to post those things, paying a fee. Of course, it has to be maintained, maybe one-time fee or monthly fee, whatever model best works. So they can post their findings and without having to go through the peer review. Not so much. It's not about against peer reviewing. It's about not going through those gatekeepers which may not accept your findings. I mean, it's just a research. It doesn't have to be bound up and be rejected by these gatekeepers. You can just, you know, um, make it available to the public. If they want to review it, so be it. If they reject it, so be it. You have the right to speak, and as the Bible says, let the man speak. So a venue for anyone who's educated to speak. Even if you're not educated, you still should be able to do an experiment and express that experiment and findings and make it available. That's a God-given right. Governments must not show bias while funding, because what's happening with modern governments is they are like crazy with Mother Earth and global warming kind of stuff. They're not funding basic research. They're funding applied research on atmospheric theories that is not proven. That's sad. About truth must stand, because truth, no matter who says, will stand. It doesn't need smart people. It just needs bold, brave people. And that's pretty much it. Amen. And this is the references. Let's see. Ozone references. I think we have 15 here. 15. So once again, this is Mike Raj, and this for analytical chemistry. This is ozone and elemental analysis. Thank you.